You're exhausted, right? Posting every day, responding to every comment, creating a dozen different content types, and still feeling like your community isn't growing as quickly as you hope. What if I told you that most of what you're doing isn't actually moving the needle? That 80% of your results are probably coming from just 20% of your efforts. Here's the truth. The secret to a thriving community isn't doing more, it's focusing on the right things. And today, we're identifying what actually matters in your community, and perhaps more importantly, giving you permission to let go of all of that busy work that's keeping you exhausted, but not actually driving growth. I'm Rachel Starr, and you're listening to Your Community Strategist. Let's dive in. Hey there. I'm Rachel Starr, ex-wedding planner and recovering people pleaser turned your community strategist. And not too long ago, I felt a bit like Angela, planning a Dunder Mifflin party, trying to make things perfect, yet wondering if people would actually show up and enjoy themselves. That's when I discovered the real game changer, community building. It's the key ingredient to everything. Whether you're launching your next course, growing a podcast, or creating a space where people want to connect and engage. Each week, we'll roll up our sleeves and dive into the essentials of community building, from virtual events and workshop planning to fresh, innovative strategies for fostering real connections, all without the party planning community drama. Whether you're just getting started or ready to level up, you'll find practical tips, expert interviews, and real-world insights to help you craft a community that fuels your next big move. So if you're ready to get inspired and transform the way you build connections, you're in the right place, friends. Let's dive in and master the art of community together. Welcome back, friends. Today's episode is sponsored by the Strategic Community Co-op, my monthly membership designed specifically for course creators, community builders, and digital entrepreneurs who want to create thriving online spaces without burning out. Inside, you'll find templates, workshops, and an amazing community of like-minded builders who understand the challenges you're facing. Check out the link in the show notes to learn more. Now, let's talk about why you're probably doing way too much in your community and what to focus on instead. Let's start with a confession. I used to be that community manager who thought success meant being everywhere all the time. I'd wake up immediately and check comments. I'd create elaborate content calendars with different posts for every day of the week. I'd respond to every single comment within minutes. And you know what? I was exhausted. And here's the kicker. My community wasn't thriving any more than those with more focused approaches. The turning point came when a member asked me a simple question. What if you could only do 20% of what you're doing now? Which activities would you keep? That question changed everything because here's the myth we need to bust wide open. More activity does not equal more engagement. Think about your favorite communities as a member. What keeps you coming back? Is it the sheer volume of content, or is it the quality of connection, the valuable insights, the sense of belonging? I'm willing to bet it's the latter. What we're talking about today is the Pareto principle, or the 80-20 rule. It suggests that roughly 80% of effects come from 20% of causes. In community building, that means about 20% of your efforts are creating 80% of your results. Let me paint a picture. Imagine you're hosting a dinner party every week. You could spend hours creating an elaborate 12-course meal that leaves you too exhausted to actually engage with your guests. Or you could prepare a simple but delicious main dish. Create a warm atmosphere and focus on facilitating great conversation. Which approach will have your guests excited to come back next week? The same applies to your community. When you're doing all the things, you're spreading yourself too thin. You're creating lots of content, sure, but how much of it is truly resonating? How much of it is driving meaningful interaction? It's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. You're tossing out content, hoping something sticks. But what if instead you could identify exactly what type of content your community loves and double down on that? That's the power of the 80-20 rule. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what works. And before you think, but Rachel, I can't just stop posting daily, or my members expect me to respond to everything. Let me assure you, they probably don't notice as much as you think. What they care about is value and connection, not frequency. I had a client who was posting 3 times a day in her community: morning motivation, midday tips, and evening reflections. She was burnt out and considering shutting down the entire community. When we analyzed her engagement data, guess what? The evening reflections got 5 times more engagement than the other posts combined. We cut back to just the evening reflections with occasional morning posts when she genuinely had something valuable to share. Engagement actually increased, and she got back about 8 hours of her week. This is what the 80-20 rule looks like in action. It's not about doing less for the sake of doing less. It's about strategic elimination so you can focus on what actually matters. Okay, so if only 20% of your efforts are creating 80% of your results, the $1 million question is, which 20%? The answer is going to be different for every community, but here's how to figure it out. First, let's do an analytic deep dive. Start by looking at your community data. What posts get the most engagement? Which events have the highest attendance? What topics spark the most conversation? Look for patterns. Maybe your how to post consistently outperforms your inspirational quotes. Or perhaps your live Q&A sessions get way more attendance than your pre-recorded workshops. Those patterns are giving you valuable insight into what your community actually cares about. Next, ask your members directly. Data doesn't tell the whole story. Sometimes the best way to figure out what your community values is to simply ask them. Send out a survey asking what content they find most valuable. Or if you want to keep it casual, just post a question in your community. What type of content or events would you like to see more of? You might be surprised by the answers. I had a client who spent hours creating elaborate graphics for her community, only to discover that what members really value were her quick voice messages with tips and insight. She scaled back on the graphics, focused on audio content, and guess what? Engagement soared, and she got back about 5 hours of her week. Now, here's a step that most community managers skip, but it's absolutely crucial. Track your time. For 1 week, I want you to track how you spend your time managing your community. Be honest and specific. Are you spending 3 hours creating the perfect graphic for a post that gets seen for 24 hours? Are you manually sending welcome messages that could be automated? How much time are you spending on activities that could be delegated or eliminated? Then compare your time allocation with your results. You might find that you're spending 80% of your time on activities that only generate 20% of your engagement. That's a clear sign that it's time to reallocate your resources. One community manager I worked with realized she was spending 10 hours a week creating a weekly newsletter. that only about 18% of her members were opening. Meanwhile, her quick, off the cuff blind sessions were getting massive engagement, but she only did them when she had time. Once she saw the data, she flipped her approach, focusing on weekly lives and scaling back the newsletter to a simple monthly format. The community thrived, and she reclaimed huge chunks of her time. This isn't about being lazy or cutting corners. It's about intentional. It's about being intentional with your limited time and energy. Because let's face it, you don't have unlimited resources. Every hour you spend on low impact activities is an hour you can't invest in what actually moves the needle. While every community is unique, I work with enough clients to spot patterns in what typically falls into that high impact 20% category. Let's break these down so you can see if they apply to your community. First up, creating space for member to member connection. One of the biggest misconceptions in community management is that you need to be the center of all activity. But the most vibrant communities are those where members connect with each other and not just with you. Think about it. If every interaction has to go through you, your community's growth is limited by your time and energy. And when members connect directly with each other, the potential for engagement becomes exponential. Activities that foster member to member connection, like introducing new members, creating conversation threads, or organizing peer matching, often yield huge returns on relatively small time investment. I worked in a business community where the leader was burning out trying to answer every question herself. We implemented a simple Member Monday spotlight where she'd highlight someone's expertise and encourage others to ask them questions. Not only did this take the pressure off of her, but it increased overall engagement because members started seeing each other as resources, not just the leader. Next, consistent, high quality events. Notice I said consistent, not frequent. One amazing monthly event that people actually look forward to and attend is a way more than four mediocre weekly events that people skip. Focus on creating high quality experiences that deliver real value and watch as attendance and engagement climb. This might mean going deeper on fewer topics rather than just trying to cover everything under the sun. A client who runs a wellness community was hosting weekly webinars with different guests, but attendance was spotty. We shifted to a monthly wellness deep dive format where she'd spend 90 minutes on one topic, bringing in research, practical applications, and guided practice. Attendance tripled and engagement really soared. And she freed up 3 weeks per month to focus on other high impact activities. Third, strategic community outreach. Personal outreach can be incredibly powerful, but you don't need to DM every single member every week. Instead, be strategic. Reach out to new members, members who've been inactive, or super engaged members who can become advocates. Think of it like watering plants. Focus on the seeds that are just sprouting, new members, the plants that are looking bit wilted, inactive members, and the ones that are blooming beautifully, potential advocates. A few well placed personal messages can create ripple effects throughout your community. And finally, clear paths to engagement. Sometimes the most impactful thing you can do is simply make it easier for members to engage. This might mean creating clear guidelines, setting up engagement prompts, or establishing community rituals that members can easily participate in. When members know exactly how to contribute, they're much more likely to do so. It's like the difference between walking into a party where everyone's already in closed conversational circles versus one where the host introduces you around and gives you easy conversation starters. In a parenting community, I advise we created a simple weekly check in ritual called Wins and Worries Wednesday. The structure was so clear and approachable that participation rates jumped from 14% to over 60%. Sometimes the simplest interventions have the biggest impact. Now, let's take a brief break and learn about my go to community building tool, Circle. I'm sure you've already heard me mention a time or two how much I love Circle for building my online community. If you're a fellow podcast host or digital creator looking to elevate your online community, look no further because Circle is endgame. It revolutionizes the way you connect and engage with your audience. Circle offers an intuitive platform that brings together your content, conversations, and community all in one place. It's your one-stop shop for building a vibrant, interactive community that's uniquely yours. Whether you're a podcast host, course creator, or coach, Circle empowers you to create a space that's as dynamic and engaging as your content. Customized to your heart's content, from private spaces to integrative live streams, making your community both exclusive and inclusive. Transform your audience into a thriving community with Circle. Watch your engagement soar, your relationships deepen, and your brand grow. It's more than a platform. It's a community builder's dream. So, are you ready to bring your community together? Visit circle.so or the link in the show notes and start your free trial today. Welcome back. Now for the fun part, identifying what you can stop doing or at least do less of. Let's start with posting just to post. If you're creating content that isn't serving a specific purpose or addressing a specific need, it's probably not worth your time. Quality over quantity, always. I know it can feel like you need to post daily to keep your community alive, but that's just not true. In fact, posting too frequently can actually dilute the impact of your truly valuable content. It's like the difference between a friend who messages you occasionally with something meaningful versus one who floods your inbox with every passing. If a post doesn't serve your community goals or directly address a member need, it's probably in the 80% you can cut. Next step, overthinking aesthetics. Okay, I have my hand up for this one. Yes, a cohesive brand look is important, but spending hours on the perfect graphic for a post that will be seen for 24 hours, probably not the best use of your time. I'm not saying you should ignore visuals completely because if you're a member of my community, you know they are super important to me. Just that perfection isn't always necessary. A simple branded template that you can easily customize will serve you much better than creating elaborate custom graphics for every post. One of my clients was spending 2 to 3 hours per graphic trying to make everything Instagram worthy. When we analyzed her engagement data, we found zero correlation between graphic complexity and member engagement. We switched to simple templates and saved her about 10 hours a week. Here's another one that might feel controversial: responding to every single comment. I know, but hear me out. When engagement is important, you don't need to be the first or only responder to every comment. Sometimes letting your community step in creates more authentic conversation. A strategic approach might be to prioritize questions that only you can answer or comments that haven't received any response after a certain time period. This ensures everyone feels heard while still respecting your limited time. Next, manually tracking everything. If you're spending hours manually tracking metric, it's time to automate. Invest in tools that can do the heavy lifting for you so you can focus on interpreting the data and taking action. For example, instead of manually tracking attendance for every event, use a platform that does this automatically. Instead of scrolling through to find unanswered questions, use saved searches or filters. Technology should be working for you, not creating more work. And finally, this is a big one, being available 24/7. The idea that you need to be constantly present in your community is a fast track to burnout. Set clear boundaries, communicate them to your community, and stick to them. Your members don't expect you to be online at all hours. What they do expect is consistency and clarity. It's better to be reliably present during set hours than sporadically available around the clock. I worked with a community leader who was checking her community notifications from the moment she woke up until she went to sleep, even bringing her phone to the bathroom. She was exhausted and resentful. We established office hours when she'd be active in the community, communicated these to members, and set up an FAQ for common questions. Not only did she reclaim her life, but her community actually became more self sufficient as members began helping each other instead of waiting for her to respond. Remember, this isn't about abandoning your responsibilities or cutting corners. It's about being strategic with your limited resources so you can focus on the activities that truly matter. Let me share a quick story about a client of mine. I'm going to call her Sarah. Sarah was running a community for women entrepreneurs. She was exhausted. She was posting multiple times a day, responding to every comment within minutes, and still feeling like she wasn't doing enough. When we analyzed her community data, we found that the vast majority of engagement came from just two types of activities: her weekly live Q&A session and a monthly wins and challenges thread where members could share their progress. Everything else, the daily motivation posts, the elaborate graphics, the constant availability, was generating minimal engagement despite taking up most of her time. So we made some changes. We cut back posting frequency from daily to 3 times a week. We focused on two high engagement activities: weekly Q&As and monthly threads. We created a clear community calendar so members knew when to expect content. We set up automated welcome sequences for new members. And we established office hours when Sarah would be active in the community and communicated these clearly. The result? Engagement actually increased by over 35%. Member retention improved, and Sarah got back roughly 10 hours of her week. By focusing on the 20% that was working, she created better results with less effort. But the most interesting part, when Sarah surveyed her members 3 months after implementing these changes, not a single person mentioned missing the daily posts or the instantaneous responses. What they did mention was how much they valued the Q&A sessions and the structured conversation and the clear organization of the community. This is what I want you to understand. Your members care about value, not volume. They want meaningful experiences, not constant content. By cutting back on the busy work, Sarah was able to deliver more what actually mattered. The 80/20 rule isn't just about doing less. It's about being more intentional with your time and energy. It's about focusing on the activities that truly matter and letting go of the busy work that's keeping you from making a real impact. Remember, a thriving community isn't built on quantity of activity, but on quality of connection. When you focus on the 20% that moves the needle, you create more meaningful experiences for your members and more sustainable practices for yourself. So here's your homework. This week, I want you to identify one low impact activity you can eliminate from your community management routine and one high impact activity you can double down on. It could be as simple as cutting a certain type of post that doesn't get engagement or adding 15 more minutes to your most popular event format. Share your 80/20 decision with me over on Instagram at Your Community Strategist. I'd love to hear what you're choosing to focus on and what you're letting go of. And if you're ready for more community building strategies, check out the Co-op, my monthly membership, where you'll find templates, workshops, and a community of builders who get it. The link is in the show notes. That's it for today's episode of Your Community Strategist. If you found this helpful, make sure to subscribe and tell your friends so you never miss an episode. Until next time, remember, less can absolutely be more. Keep building, keep growing, and stop doing busy work that doesn't move the needle. Bye, friend.